This is Good Karma Wrestling. Welcome to another edition of GKW. I'm Gabe Knightson from ESPN Milwaukee. With me, as always, Brian Rowitz from ESPN West Palm and the new Money in the Bank winner. You can catch him on ESPN 1000 in Chicago, Jonathan Hood. And speaking of Money in the Bank, that's where we have to start. The main event, I didn't see it coming, didn't think it would actually happen, but sure enough, we have a cash-in from Austin Theory, finally, of that Money in the Bank briefcase. Rumors about maybe he's going to be the first one to hold on it for a full year because you have the year. What are they going to do with him? Well, he decides to cash it in. But no. He's not going to cash it in on Roman Reigns. Why would you do that? He tries to cash it in for the United States Championship, which, again, kudos to Triple H. You've done a good job of making it relevant. Maybe you're trying to make it a little too relevant at this point. So he tries to cash in for the U.S. Championship and loses in the main event of Monday Raw this past week. I just cannot wrap my head around this one. So where we start today, is this the worst Money in the Bank cash-in ever?
There is no question. It's the worst since Mr. Kennedy in 2007. To me, because it's a bad cash-in, not because it's on Raw. That's not the reason. It's because it didn't seem like they had really a plan for Theory. It was just last week where I said, guys, I'm starting to come around on Theory because he's just not sitting in a front face lock. He's actually getting up and he's wrestling. We already know the personality. And I thought they could do something with him. But it seems as though I think Triple H and management just said, we're just going to draw a line in the sand and then we're going to get the Money in the Bank off of him, the briefcase. And I don't understand that. I just thought that the whole thing was odd all at the same time, where it happens on Monday Night Raw. And then now what for Theory? A guy that actually was getting over.
Yeah, and I think the other thing, like we've talked about on this show, if they were going to take the briefcase off of him, they were sort of setting up a month or so ago, him and Gargano. Like, that would have been perfect. Like, let Gargano sort of challenge him, call him out, win it that way. I watched Raw a little behind on Monday, and I saw on Twitter, like, oh, Theory fails cash-in. And I was intrigued. I was like, oh, how did they figure this out? Like, what are they going to do with Roman? Like, Roman's not advertised for tonight. Like, this is going to be very entertaining. And then I saw Rollins end the show, like, wait, what is happening here? And I know we're supposed to throw logic out with wrestling, but what about the fact that Rollins had not one but two open challenges on that night? Were anyone going to come out and challenge for that title and not need the briefcase that Austin Theory used on Monday? Like, it makes no sense. I don't get it.
I blame myself. I blame me because they teased this, guys. Like, they were teasing it the previous Mondays, and I just didn't think they were serious. Like, oh, okay, haha, nudge, wink, wink. Yeah, I guess you could cash it in for the U.S. title. I don't know why you would, but I guess you could. They don't say what title. It's just any title. Why? I mean, I guess if you really wanted to, you could do it for the 24/7 title too, right? Wink, wink, nudge. Like, they've been teasing this the last couple of Mondays, and I guess I just didn't take it serious enough, and so that's on me. Triple H has been very upfront about what was going to happen here, and I guess I just did not believe that he would actually pull the trigger. So now Theory joins this list of people who have cashed in the Money in the Bank championship or the Money in the Bank contract without winning a championship. Yes. It starts with John Cena, who on Raw 1000 booked the match in advance, didn't try to sneak up on CM Punk. Big Show ended up interfering. So Cena won the match, but did not win the championship by disqualification. Damian Sandow had a very bad effort against John Cena, where he lost his Money in the Bank cash in. Baron Corbin, also poor effort against Jinder Mahal. Remember the Jinder Mahal era? That was wild times. I mean, I wish I didn't. Braun Strowman wrestled to a no contest in Hell in a Cell after Brock Lesnar, Paul Heyman interfered in that. Then you also have Theory, who lost this past Monday. Also in there, I don't know where this falls, because Otis is a Money in the Bank winner. And then he lost his contract to The Miz, who then successfully cashed in. But Otis, to me, is also on this list of bad Money in the Bank wrestlers because he eventually lost his Money in the Bank briefcase.
Kennedy never cashed in either, did he? He was never the heavyweight champion, was he? I don't
think so.
I know. I think that he was the point of the Money in the Bank is to be able to get someone over, someone who does not have a championship, and you're saying this is going to be the next guy. This is going to be the next star. There's one for the women, there's one for the men. Over the years in the WWE, and so I thought with Austin Theory, this is McMahon, he thought that this was going to be the next guy. And there's nothing wrong with that. If you feel like this guy in the Indies can be able to wrestle a WWE style and be able to get over, I think he was getting over. But it's Triple H. I'll always remember Raw for this. He put into the trash can the 24/7 championship, the Money in the Bank, and Ali all in the same episode. Somehow, some way, all three things were just thrown to the side for this Monday Night Raw. I will say this, that I don't think that should stop any momentum for Austin Theory. I still think that he'll have some really good matches, but I guess they looked at the championship situation and says, man, we just can't get these championships off of Roman. It doesn't make any sense. So let's see if we could do well, that wouldn't make any sense. He can't beat Rollins because Rollins is up here and Austin Theory's down here. What other championships are could you imagine like Gunther against Theory? No, that's not going to work. I mean, they looked at it and looked at all the contenders. They're like, oh shit, we need to take this off of him because it wouldn't make sense for him to beat anybody apparently that has a singles championship in the WWE.
But there's so much time. Like you've got,
right.
And we know this, so much can change in wrestling. Somebody gets injured, whatever. I don't think you needed to rush this. I don't think you needed to just get this off of him and get it out of here. This tells me one thing. Obviously, they still plan on Roman Reigns having the championships 6-7 months from now, whenever the next Money in the Bank pay-per-view is. But that's painfully obvious to me because clearly Theory wasn't going to be able to cash in against Roman and win. So the Roman Reigns and the Bloodline, that's continuing for another 6-7 months minimum.
But that's the weird thing. Like, I think the one thing we're learning out of Monday and seeing the reaction, seeing the negative reaction, ripping Triple H, like he's starting to lose some of that goodwill. There's not that blind faith of like, it's okay. Hunter's going to work it out. He has a plan with him dropping it. Like Theory with the briefcase or anyone with the briefcase adds that sort of intrigue. I go back to the Roman Brock match at SummerSlam when Theory came out there where you're like, is this really going to happen? Like just him coming out and just being there adds a different dynamic, adds a different angle. And I don't understand why you would just blindly take that away. We've talked about guys losing the briefcase. Why not just have him lose it to someone else as opposed to looking dumb, honestly? Like for going out there and challenging for a lesser title and not winning unless, and I haven't seen anyone say this out there, where they say like, because of interference, like it doesn't count and he still has the briefcase come this Monday.
Yeah, it's always exciting too. When even if you fail to cash in, it was always electric. Like here's Edge. Edge is like one of the best ones, running from the back, or Rollins running from the back, bring a referee says, "I want to do it now. I want to do it now." It didn't have that same type of energy with Austin Theory. But if I'm Paul Levesque, Browitz, and I say, okay, so if not now in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, when can I take it off of him? Like, do I do it in Survivor Series? Do I do it at the Royal Rumble? Do I do it at WrestleMania? Like, that is the question. Like, if I can't do it now, when should I? Because he doesn't see him as a singles champion at all in the company.
Sure, which is fine, but why not like put some stakes? Like, why not make it to where he's challenging Rollins, say, hey, I want the U.S. title back. And Rollins said, okay, but you need to put up the Money in the Bank briefcase. And now Rollins has the briefcase. And now all of a sudden you have that intrigue of Rollins as being, Mr. Money in the Bank once again. Or just have him come out there and try and cash in on Roman and the Bloodline gets involved and he loses it that way. Like, it just doesn't make sense to lose it this way.
I have no problem with him dropping it. I have a problem with him dropping it while trying to go for the U.S. championship. Like, that to me, just like bury this guy with a shovel. Like, wait, so you're bad and dumb.
Right.
Like, that's the worst combination. You can be bad. That's fine. But bad and dumb? Like, if you're going to lose it, at least lose it going after the Bloodline. Go after the Tribal Chief. Go after the guy who's walking around with 2 championship belts. Do that instead of dropping it on a random Monday night when we weren't expecting it for the U.S. title, which is already a title you have held. It just doesn't make any sense. It is by far the strangest decision that we've had of the Triple H era. We graded Triple H last week. We all had high grades. Like, this would, to me, would like knock him down a half a grade because that's how dumb and idiotic this decision is.
I would agree, especially on a random Monday Night Raw. That's the whole thing. It's like it didn't build toward anything. It was just something that happened. So I would agree with you. I'm just confused of exactly what's next for Theory, because there's a difference between McMahon and Triple H. I mean, maybe from Triple H, he doesn't look at Theory as the next guy. I think he can be like, to me, he's the secondary guy. There's a list of 8 that I'm sure that Triple H looks at, but then I think he's on that second level. I don't know what Triple H thinks of him now when you just take that off of him. It was strange. And out of all the things that we've seen so far through, I guess we're through about 120 days almost of his era, like that's a very strange thing that happened. That is for sure.
It's like, yeah, it just, I can't. Why would you do this? Because, and the other thing is, like, I've been starting to come around on Austin Theory. Like, when he was more or less crowned, and then he got his WrestleMania moments, and they were doing the whole thing with him and Vince McMahon and the whole thing, like, okay. It was kind of the reaction that a lot of people had to Roman Reigns when he was initially away from the Shield and being jammed down everyone's throat. Kind of the same thing. And now with Triple H in charge, I'm like, okay, let's give him a little bit of a chance. And he's put on some bangers, man. Like, he's put on some really good matches. I'm enjoying his work as this heel character. And I'm starting to see now the potential myself as a fan. Like, I can start to kind of get behind him. And this just kind of halts any and all momentum.
You talk about his match. It was just last week that him and Rollins put on that banger. Like, I just looked back at the notes. Like, that was my match of the week last week, was the two of them in the ring on Monday night putting on one hell of a match. And like the fact that now have this the next week, it's Vince logic where you're like, okay, like, were you thinking beyond this week? Like, were you thinking about your next moves? And the fact that so many people, at least the New York Post or Times, to put it out there, like saying it's the worst decision ever, you completely killed Theory, sort of says something to what we think about Triple H, the booker, and that maybe he's starting to lose some of the goodwill he had 100 days ago.
Unless there's a grander plan, which I think we're going to get to within the framework of this show. There might be a grander plan for him, but I just think that between now and WrestleMania, or between now and the next Money in the Bank, who's going to be elevated to that point where they can be seen as the next guy. I guess that's what it comes down to. Hey, if Theory wins a championship, for a long time under Vince, guys like Rey Mysterio, Chris Benoit, CM Punk, a lot of those wrestlers were the champion, but really not the guy. Bray Wyatt, they were the champion, not the guy. I don't know if Theory was going to be in that same category, but without the Money in the Bank briefcase, what is he going to be? That's what I'm interested in seeing, because he's one of their one of their top, heels in the company right now. So I'm very curious to see what happens next.
The other thing that they're out there also, we talked about Triple H, getting rid of the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view. There's also rumors that maybe he gets rid of the Money in the Bank pay-per-view, and that becomes part of WrestleMania. So maybe it's just a clock thing. But even that, I mean, it's November. You didn't have to do it on Monday, but maybe it's something to just sort of reset the clock for him. Okay,
quickly, just to put an end on this, who is this the worst? Who's the worst Money in the Bank wrestler? Is this the worst cash-in? And if this isn't the worst cash-in, what do you have as the worst cash-in?
Well, like I said, for me, it's Kennedy was the worst guy with Money in the Bank. But then we mentioned, now who was that with that you just mentioned earlier? That was a WWE champion just for a short amount of time. Jinder Mahal.
That was not a short amount of time.
No, that was way too long.
That was a long run for Jinder Mahal, who did.
There were multiple pay-per-view main events there.
Who defeated Baron Corbin when Corbin tried to cash in.
That's it. Yeah, I tuned out. That's before. This predates GKW when I didn't have to watch Raw. where I was doing a wrestling podcast, but it was never anything about Raw. There was a reason why, because Jinder Mahal and listen, I know that was a business decision. So it's just like, hey, we want to get this TV over there in in Saudi Arabia and internationally, we got to make him champion. But yeah, I tuned out of all that. Yeah.
So I would say definitely worse cash-in, just because it makes no sense, the U.S. title. In terms of wrestling, though, I think it has to be Otis, because like the Baron Corbins, the Kennedys of the world, there's at least that intrigue of like, you know what? This is the mid-card guy that maybe they push a little bit, and you say there's the potential that cash-in. No one saw that with Otis. Like, he was over, he was lovable. They had the whole Mandy Rose thing. There was 0% chance he was ever going to be a world champion. So to me, that's still the worst wrestler to win it.
Was that during the pandemic? Was that on top of Titan Tower?
Yes, that was a cinematic Money in the Bank.
Yes, God. Where him, and then the women's winner was Asuka, who then that next Monday became the women's champ when Becky Lynch stepped away because we knew she was pregnant.
Wasn't something also thrown off the roof that night?
I think Rey Mysterio died. Yes, they threw him off the roof. Yeah.
He is a baby face. He survived. That's amazing.
He did. It's incredible. Like, they threw him off the roof and he somehow survived. And maybe he wishes he didn't, because now he's feuding with his son. He had to go over to SmackDown. I'm with Otis as my worst wrestler, and yes, this is the worst one because it doesn't make sense. But shout out to John Cena for doing I'm not going to cash in behind your back. I'm going to announce the match, and we're going to do it on Raw 1000, and telegraphing that. Oh yeah, you're not going to win because.
But at least that makes sense for him. Like for white meat babyface John Cena, try so hard. That makes sense for that character.
Yeah, it makes sense. It doesn't mean you have to like it, but it does make sense. Which you cannot say for this. It doesn't make any sense to try to cash that thing on the U.S. title. All right, so that was one of the biggest stories in wrestling this week. We've got 3 other ones we like to talk about. We call it the 3 count here on GKW. Brian, what do we have at number 1?
We'll start in the world of AEW. The newest world title eliminator tournament has been announced. It'll conclude at Full Gear. The winner will get a world title shot at Winter's coming on December 14th. So the 8-man tournament, should anybody besides Ricky Starks win this tournament?
I mean, the answer should be no. Ricky Starks. But again, Ricky Starks has been missing from television, and I think he's been off kind of, doing a couple of other things, which is why he's been gone. And that was a question we asked a couple of weeks ago. Because, what happened to him and Powerhouse Hobbs? Because they had a pretty good feud going, and now they've got Hobbs going after that TNT championship and Ricky Starks in this. It's just very obvious that they decided they wanted to do this again and have it at Winter is Coming, which is what they've done in the past. It's how Kenny Omega was able to get the championship belt off of Jon Moxley a few years ago. I don't think you needed to do this.
The bracket. So to throw the bracket out last night,
right?
It started last night. Ethan Page beat Eddie Kingston. Then there'll be 3 matches tomorrow: Ricky Starks versus Lance Archer, Brian Cage versus Dante Martin, and Roos versus Bandito.
Yes. So the answer to the question is Ethan Page. Ethan Page should be the champion because you know what? No one's looking for that except me. That guy's working hard, and I want him to be champion because there's already too many managers in AEW that's not doing anything. So, I guess we'll find out at Full Gear what's going on with MJF, which we'll get to in a second, and whether or not he has a benefactor or a manager behind all of this. But I want Ethan Page to win. I think Ethan Page is really underrated. When he was with Scorpio Sky, that was a great tandem. But I think that Ethan Page is working hard. We saw Wednesday the way he was able to take over and beat Eddie Kingston. And I'm glad there was some backstory from Excalibur. I had no idea how often they wrestled in the Indies. I was glad to learn that from Excalibur. But I like Ethan Page. I think that he's got a great look. He's a heel. And I think that no one's looking for that. I wouldn't have no problem with Ethan Page winning this whole thing.
So the thing with me, I'm on the other side of Ethan Page. I don't think he's that great. I don't know what it is. I'm missing something there. But projecting it forward, Ricky Starks versus heel MJF, that's a fun match. That's a story you can get behind. The crowd can get behind Ricky Starks trying to win that title. To Gabe's point, it sort of speaks to the AEW booking where you shoot someone up, they get so hot, and it's hey, haven't we taken them off TV for a few weeks? No, that's not the way you keep them hot. Do what you do with the Acclaimed. Otherwise, there's no one else in this tournament. I guess Ethan Page versus face MJF makes sense from storyline standpoints, but how many people are tuning into that Wednesday saying, oh, this is the match I want to see? The other side is playing the flip is if Mox wins next week, Mox versus Eddie Kingston. And I know he's gone now, but that would have been a fun Wednesday night of, hey, is this going to be the one that where Eddie finally gets that world title? Mox has to be the one to sort of put him down, taking old Yeller out to the back, I'm sorry, Eddie, this isn't your night. That would have been fun.
I love you.
Sorry, I love you.
Perfect. He's got him in the Bulldog. I'm sorry, I love you.
I'm sorry, I love you.
Perfect.
It's Shawn Michaels flair all over again.
Yeah, exactly.
Tremendous.
So those are the only way you can make sense of anyone else. And I like that the tournament doesn't have a bunch of big time names. You say, okay, hey, maybe there's someone there.
That's why I said Ethan Page. Somebody's got to get hot, man.
I know. There's no one in this that should do that, though. Lance Archer is just a giant jobber at this point. Bruce and Bandito put on a great match.
This means Brian Cage is winning, right?
I guess.
That's all this means, is that Brian Cage is going to end up winning. Because those are the two that you can make a case for, is Ricky Starks and Ethan Page. Because I am still of the belief that the firm is behind MJF, and they are going to help him win against Jon Moxley, especially just the way that Mox has been so protected in just about every one of his losses. He doesn't lose clean all that often, and they had him lose clean to CM Punk, so maybe they protect him here again. And and he loses because of outside interference, much like we saw when Kenny Omega took it off of him. So that would make sense. And then, but in the off chance that they actually pay off this, I don't need anything storyline with, like, hey, I can do it on my own. Don't need the Dynamite Diamond. Don't need any of this stuff with him trying to prove that he can do it on his own. Yes, then Ethan Page with the ongoing Firm versus MJF stuff, that can make sense. Otherwise, otherwise it's Ricky Starks. It has to be one of those two because those are the only two that have really stood out. Bandito's had couple of good matches when we've seen him, and he's finally signed that contract. I like Roosh, but he seems to be kind of just wandering aimlessly without Andrade around. And the only two that make sense are the two that we've mentioned. I can't make a case for anyone else. I would have loved the Eddie Kingston thing. I love the way we just fantasy booked that, but unfortunately that dream died. But I mean, that's what Rowitz does. He's trying to constantly book Eddie Kingston into world championship
Give him a world
matches.
title. Let's go.
No.
Listen to the crowd.
He does. And listen to the crowd. Listen to Rowitz like a wrestler from the 70s. All you got to do is listen to the crowd.
That's it.
Okay, yeah. All 5,000 of them every Wednesday. Yeah, listen to him. Yeah,
Eddie Kingston's over.
Yeah.
I mean, the other guy, Gabe, you didn't even mention him, like Dante Martin. Like, I feel like there's been ebbs and flows with him.
Hurt. He's always been
Yeah,
hurt.
he gets like him versus heel MJF.
Yeah. I guess at this point with Dante is like heated up and cooled down so many times. It seems like he's heated up and cooled down more times than Big Show has turned face and heel, right? Like it just happens so often in AEW because of the injuries. I guess I'm over Dante Martin at this point. I think he's a tremendous wrestler. I was really hoping that one of the times he got hot, he could also develop a character to go along with the good work rate that to me he has in the ring. And unfortunately, he just hasn't been able to stay healthy enough where, man, I know he's cut promos, but if you were to play a tape, like you were to play 3 random voices right now for me, and Dante Martin's one of them, I don't think I could recognize his voice. Like he's not much of a character outside of this dude is super athletic and is going to do some really cool things that, only Ray Phoenix can do.
Yeah, that's because he's been so in and out of the company because of injuries. You need to be able to work with him. Look, what was Jack Perry a year and a half ago? Right. Hiding in the back, did not want to do promos. Anybody seen Jungle Boy? You had to track him down, by the dock someplace. And they had to, this is what I was told, because he didn't want to do it, did not want to speak. And so now you can't get him off the camera. Now he wants to beat everybody's ass, which is good. You're a professional wrestler, right? You're supposed to look in the camera and let people know you want to beat someone's ass. The same thing with Dante Martin. That just comes with time. He's young. I get it. But, I think that as much as I think that Ethan Page should be the guy, I think that it's going to be a baby face like Ricky Starks, because if it is Starks, now you got Starks and MJF, now you get the future of your company, 2 young guys under 30 going at it. I like Page because of I think that he's on the ascend, he's on the come, but I could see like the next generation of AEW going one-on-one, which would be really cool.
Yeah, that's fair.
I wouldn't mind the rub. I think we all agree that no matter who wins this thing, they're not going to beat, to me, either Moxley in the slim chance that Moxley wins or MJF at Winter is Coming in early December. So I wouldn't mind the rub that Page could potentially get there, put on a really good match, and then you can try to keep pushing him, because I feel like Starks has gotten some of those rubs. And once you continue, and the other thing about Starks, to me, the more you put him on TV, the more he's going to ooze confidence. He's going to ooze that kind of it factor that I think we believe he has. So if you gave the rub to all ego Ethan Page, I don't think that would be a bad thing, because Ricky Starks' time certainly is coming as well.
And by the way, the actual real answer to this question is Miro. Anybody seen Miro? Anybody know where he is?
Nope.
I saw him on an episode of is it CSI New York? The show that's on CBS. I saw him on there. I only turned on
was it an FBI show?
Yes,
because I think that's the new series on CBS. Like they've gone from CSI, now they've replaced just 2 of the letters and they have FBI. And yes, he was
something like that. Only reason I'm watching because Richard Kind's on there. If it's Richard Kind, I'm there. I'm gonna check out Richard.
Wait, you're a Richard Kind stan?
Yeah,
I did not see that coming. I didn't realize you were a big Spin City guy. Like I really, just really thought him running, being in the background of things, running New York City in the late 90s was, I didn't take you for a Spin City guy?
I
You more of
know
Michael
this
J.
one.
Fox or Charlie Sheen on that show? Which one did you like more, J. Hood?
Yes. Yes. You know why I like Richard Kind is because you know what you're getting. He's not trying to do any acting. Even on this show here, I've seen a couple episodes. He just kind of saunters in and he goes, "Hey, I've got myself a 1978 LTD. I bought a new car. There's crime going on, Richard. Yeah, but I got a new car." I mean, you're getting what you. The same thing with Curb, right? You see Richard Kind, you know what you're getting. That's what I like about him. It's like me. You know what you're getting.
No, I don't.
No,
because
yeah, I didn't see that one coming.
But yeah,
Yeah.
no. I mean, I thought I knew what was coming. No, I did not think that we were going to spend 2 to 3 minutes talking about Richard Kind and how like he's just really, just has really bought into himself in every role that he plays. Didn't
Do you
see
get
that one
entertainment?
coming.
Okay. Do you get entertainment from me on the show? Then you know what you're getting. There you go.
Just sometimes you don't know the source of said entertainment. What's number 2, Brian?
All right, I've got no transition on this one. Ringside News is reporting that John Cena has already talked to Triple H about wrestling at WrestleMania 39. So, guys, who should John Cena face at WrestleMania?
So first, the weird part about this whole thing, like that was attached with it, was like, oh, and Cena, who knew if he was going to come back? He, initially, maybe if he started working, it was going to be a betrayal to Vince because he's so close to Vince. Like, Vince's family's still running the damn place. Like,
Right.
His son-in-law's in charge. His daughter's the CEO. Like, Vince has kind of given his blessing on the whole thing. So that was.
I
just a
will
weird
also
part.
point out in terms of Vince, like I went on the WWE website today to go through their roster just to get some ideas for this question. Vince is still listed there. Mr. McMahon's still on the roster page. So there you go.
Oh boy.
Oh.
Oh.
So
what do you think?
I think that if Austin Theory, if you have plans for him, he's the one who makes the most sense to me. Where he can still have his big match at WrestleMania. And assuming he goes over Cena, that gets him kind of back on track to where you want, and that is the one that makes the most sense to me because you want it to be a big enough match. You don't want it to be a title match at this point for John Cena. And I think that's the one that makes the most sense.
That's it. That's what I had written down. I wrote down Cena versus Theory because, bro, it's that ties the whole thing back. Remember, it was Cena and Theory did some kind of face-to-face or this feeling like, I don't know why people were saying this, Austin Theory looks like a young John Cena. No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't. I don't know why that came out. That got into the wrestling bloodstream on social. Like, they don't look like each other. But I think that, again, no money in the bank, and Austin Theory needs to rub, and Cena takes the pinfall. All right, and so I have no problem with that. I looked at the same roster. I can't, and I'm looking at the veteran roster too on my screen. Like, I don't know what a WWE Hall of Famer could take on Austin Theory and Austin would get over. I don't see that unless is Randy Orton available at WrestleMania?
I mean, no one seems to know.
Because if not, then it's Orton against Riddle because he's definitely coming back as a heel. There's no question about that.
The less we hear about Randy, just to quickly get in on Randy Orton, the less we hear about Randy, the more concerned I get.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. And I think Theory is the obvious answer here. And we talk about Triple H and long-term booking. That makes sense. Theory goes down that long road of the losing and he can't get anything done. Maybe he's a quick elimination in the Rumble. And then, they're seeing it to sort of rub it in. They do it that way. Other names, though, I do think Theory is the obvious. You talk about sort of putting that Rocketeer back and doing that push. What about Braun Breaker? That's his first Mania moment, going out there right away and knocking off Cena in his first Mania.
Braun Breaker still as the NXT champ?
I don't think it's necessary.
Because, again, that would be very similar, and you'd be borrowing then from what you did with Kevin Owens. When Kevin Owens first showed up and he was still NXT champ and he did the whole thing with Cena. And, of course, Cena was a full-time guy back then. But I think, if you don't have any plans to take it off of Breaker, off of NXT, I could make that make sense, but I haven't watched enough of NXT to know if Breaker's ready for that big WrestleMania moment. Whereas I think that it would be with Braun Breaker, clearly they like him. Clearly they see him as a future champion. He fits. He checks all the boxes, whether it's Triple H, whether it's Vince who's running the show. But I could also see him beating Cena being very forgettable, like when Fandango beat Chris Jericho. And that really didn't do anything for Fandango or Dongo, whatever his name was. It just didn't do much for him, right? Like it didn't. So I can see the same being there unless you find a way to get Breaker up around the Rumble and build it on Raw or SmackDown and try to get him to connect with your main audience.
We could draw a line of demarcation when Vince really lost it by putting Fandango over Jericho. Like, I mean, but it was such a sell. Like, McMahon's like, yeah, I want you to put him over, pal. And Jericho's like, who? Curtis? That guy? Like, yeah, I want you to put him over. At WrestleMania? Like, okay. And by the way, it got over. Yeah. But it was too authentic, and Vince didn't like it. People in New York, I remember when they were in New York, and the people on the subway were doing this whole thing, like all that. What's that? People like it. Can you imagine? Like, that's so nightmarish. I'm sure for Jericho, knowing that he had to lose WrestleMania against that guy. But I can't. Are we missing something, guys? Let's put our heads together. Are we missing something? Someone from AEW, someone from the outside to take on Cena?
I was just looking at the roster. Like, I mean, you mentioned Miro earlier. So the way I wrote it was a Rusev do-over, Gunther, and continuing his dominance.
Oh, jeez.
I just can't see.
He crushed Cena.
But like that would add to him. Like as dominant as he's been, I think that even makes him a world title contender at that point.
You know what? That makes a hell of a poster, by the way. Like Cena and that jaw against like Gunther. That'd be a hell of a poster.
As much as they've leaned into the foreignness of Imperium, I have a hard time imagining they would put him over Cena at Mania. You know, it just doesn't, because you would have to lean into like the USA Europe thing.
Yes. And come on, man, this ain't 1989.
But that's
the USSR. Right,
yeah, okay, so you're telling me that they would not tell me that even though Triple H is running things, that you don't think that's how that's playing out. Cena's going over Gunther 10 times out of 10 at Mania.
See, that would not work. I would not like that. Like Cena crushing any of these guys makes no sense.
What about Cody?
Listen, I know it's pro wrestling. I just hate the old school trope of like, hey man, this is an Austrian against an American, and like I am a real. Like Hogan comes out with the flag. Like, are we done with this?
Huh? USA Hogan? Number one. The other country Hawk Pui, no?
Oh, Sheik. You're saying Sheik against Cena? I heard Sheik comes out there. He's won at WrestleMania before. He won the gimmick battle royal. I remember that.
Seriously though, so what about Cody? What if What if Hunter decides that he doesn't want Cody to be, let's say they get The Rock and they do The Rock Roman still has the straps, whatever. So now you need something for Cody. Cody Cena in a passing of the torch almost there.
I wrote Cody down. I think that could make sense. Like he becomes like the Cena, the guy going out there, making the media rounds, doing the Make-A-Wish. Like that's Cody.
Ooh, two baby faces. Ooh, two syrupy baby faces, Cody and Cena. I like that too. I like that a lot, actually. That can
I like it, but when you mentioned that, like now I envision the crowd turning on it.
Oh well. No, it's Los Angeles. I think they'll get a kick out of that.
I don't think Cena's reached the point where the crowd doesn't turn on him like they did 7-8 years ago. Sure. Like when he came back for the Summer of Cena, like he was uber over. The 5 moves of doom. Everybody loved it because wasn't being jammed down your throat. Yes, he went after Roman for the championship, but you knew he wasn't going to win. Still put on a fun match, and I think that Cena's reached that point where he just has the respect of the WWE audience where I don't think they're going to turn on him.
The other one I'll throw out there, it's definitely left field. We talk about his push for a while. Montez Ford.
Well, where's that push since he's been hurt? Is it going to rekindle or will he be back in the tag team? What happens now when he's healthy?
I feel like if he comes back, I feel like the Rumble sort of our, landmark right now. If he makes a big run in the Rumble, like if he's Final 4, Final 5, where you're like, oh, maybe there's something there, a win over Cena sort of gives you that little push. You're like, okay, this is our guy.
Does Montez turn on his partner?
I think
If he does, I'm rooting for Angelo in the feud.
Okay.
Well, look, you know what? God bless. He's not Jannetty. He's not. Like, he's been very impressive in singles competition.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Well, one last thing on that. So was the Montez Ford push a McMahon push or a Triple H push? That was McMahon at first, right? Because he bulked up 30 pounds. Like, I don't know what the philosophy is on some of these guys now. I guess we don't know about Theory either. Same thing. We don't know the philosophy. I have no idea. I just know it's the biggest mistake in the Triple H era. I think we agree with that.
Oh, yeah. I don't know if I could come up with a second because it's not even close to whatever we saw on Monday night. That was weird. What do we got at number 3, Brian?
All right. Yesterday was the 25th anniversary of the Montreal Screwjob with Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart. So, guys, where does the Montreal Screwjob fit in the biggest moments of pro wrestling history?
I don't want to put it number 1, but that being said, I feel like no other event. And every once in a while on social media, you see like, oh, today was the first day that Stone Cold Steve Austin said, Austin 316 just says I whooped your ass. You see these little, oh, this was when the curtain call happened on this day in history. Like, I feel the Montreal Screwjob every time I see it come across my feed. Like, it's a big talking point and it gets discussed. Like, Road Dogg was talking about it on his podcast to the point where he tried to make a case of him somehow being better than Bret Hart, which we don't have to necessarily address. Again, we don't need to get into it. Don't have to do it. But it just seems
Does
like...
that mean you don't agree? Is that what that noise was?
If I say something about it, it's going to be the next half hour. So go ahead.
All right, so let's just move on. We'll move on. We'll come back and do a special show on what Road Dogg said.
Such an a-hole. Go ahead.
But it seems like it becomes a giant talking point for everyone because it was such a pivotal moment of Bret Hart going to WCW and everybody knowing it. And I mean, there's so many stories behind Bret not wanting to go. And it just goes, the stories go so deep. It seems like every time this anniversary comes up, everybody just wants to talk about it for half of a day. So I don't know if it is the biggest moment in pro wrestling history, but I feel like its anniversary is celebrated or at least remembered and talked about like no other moment in pro wrestling history.
We saw an actual screw job, and that's the reason why people like it, because there's so many angles. The reason why this even talked about is because we saw it happen on the pay-per-view, and then the whole documentary with Bret was intertwined with that pay-per-view. So now not only you have WWE TV at the time, but also the film from the documentary that Bret was filming, and so now you got behind-the-scenes stuff and all that. Like, I know what happened, and I know it's a big event because something real happened in wrestling. And I think that what's unfortunate is, and we seem like we talk about this almost every other week. Yes, that was cool, but what money was made from that? Right?
Well, what I would say, Mr. McMahon was born.
Ooh, which would be a lot of money. And
but just not with Bret, though. That's what I'm saying.
No, not with Bret. You didn't get that payoff, but I do think that path was created because of that moment. You believe Vince McMahon is a heel because of that moment.
It's not because Austin said, I'll whoop your ass. It wasn't that Austin going against McMahon.
I just said there's more believability there. Like, you wanted to hate Vince because you saw him get spit on pay-per-view. We were like, oh, something's going on there. Like, we don't like him. Well,
because he could absolutely screw Stone Cold over because we just saw it happen in real life.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a realness to the character. Maybe there just adds a depth to that Mr. McMahon character that isn't there unless the Montreal Screwjob happens. And you got the payoff at WrestleMania, what was it, 15 years later, whenever Bret eventually came back and they did the Bret versus Mr. McMahon at Mania. Oh. But the money wasn't made in the moment, but WWE has certainly made a bleep ton of money off of this. Like you mentioned the Brett documentary. Like there are probably, if you were to go on Peacock right now, I bet you could find 3 or 4 different things that just revolve around the Montreal Screwjob.
Yeah, that's a long conversation of exactly what happened there, but the ramifications of it still ripples today. It has a rippling effect because it's 25 years later. I've seen the same list that you two have seen as far as the biggest moments. Like for someone that was a white meat babyface his whole career, for Hogan to go to the NWO in Orlando was just amazing. Like, because no one saw that coming. Nobody saw that coming. Hogan becoming a heel was unbelievable. It turned the business around, Gabe.
Yeah, that's probably number one. I think Hogan going to NWO is number one because I also feel like that anniversary gets celebrated because of what the NWO was. But then this ends up being number two. But again, I still feel like we talk about the Montreal Screwjob more than anything else because, like you said, I think you hit it on the reason why. Because there's a realness to it, right? Like there's just a realness to it that made it, a little bit different than anything else because everything else is happening within storyline, and this happened within storyline and then also not.
Right, because I think we suspend the disbelief, but you still sort of have because there's still to this day, I feel like people are like, well, you know what, that was a work. Like there's still that angle to it where people think that, and I think you can still make that argument. So that's why I think it's up there, and it's always that sort of teetering that line. Like the MJF stuff this year was such a big deal because as fans, we didn't know if it was real. We didn't know if he was showing up to that pay-per-view. We didn't know how much he was upset with Tony. And even the Punk stuff, as big of a story as that's been all year, it's been like, well, it's a work, right? Like he's going to come back and main event with Kenny. So when you're right on that line is when we get our best stuff in pro wrestling.
So for those that don't know, Jim Cornette turns to Vince McMahon at Vince McMahon's estate and says, well, Brett doesn't want to lose in Montreal. He'll lose it anywhere. He'll drop it to anybody, but won't lose it to Shawn in Montreal. Which kind of blows your mind, right? It is pro wrestling. This is all a work. This is acting, but yet you don't want to lose it because Brett's real. Wrestling might be sketchy, but Brett's real to the point where he doesn't want to lose his championship. And so Jim Cornette turns to Vince and says, we should just take it off of him. Just talk to the referee and let's just, get him in the sharpshooter and then whatever, just screw him. Like that. That's the whole story.
And Brett told Sports Illustrated this week they had 25 more minutes of that match. Like after that reversal, there still was another 25 minutes of that match.
I don't know what stories. That's the one that I keep hearing that Jim Cornette told Vince, you should just screw him. He can't do this to the business. No one's bigger than the business. All this stuff, right? And then, so Hogan turning heel, Hogan beating Andre at WrestleMania, slamming him. Sure. Even though I could send you guys right now footage of Andre being slammed. It's just some random house show in Houston. Harley Race did it as just a transitional spot. I saw it myself. I'm going to send that to you. You don't believe me? I'll send you that. It's like in Houston, right? The old Summit. And just like Harley's like, slam. And Andre's like, and it's just like, picked him up, slam. Lateral press. Just slammed Andre the Giant. Apparently, Andre got slammed all over the country. Just nobody saw it on national TV. No one saw it on pay-per-view. So that was big, though, because it's WrestleMania. Yeah. Many people didn't see that before. Undertaker streaks ends. Is that not a big event where the guy should have stayed undefeated at WrestleMania and he loses it to Brock in Houston, in New Orleans?
I still think this is a bigger deal, though.
Yeah. Like, I mean, certainly Taker losing was a great moment. And again, it gave us one of my favorite wrestling memes ever of the guy just like staring in disbelief, his eyes like the widest you've ever seen. He can't believe that Taker just lost at WrestleMania. But it's that's certainly up there. That might be top 10. But again, I think it's NWO. I think it's this. And whatever you have at 3, there's probably a significant gap.
So see, I put this at 3. I'm putting Hogan heel turn. And I'm putting Vince leaving. I know it wasn't in the ring, but experiencing that this year, is something I never thought I would experience in my lifetime with Vince still alive. So yes. I think those two are the only two I would put above Montreal.
I think the three of us were in a daze. Like we could not believe that we start a show and then McMahon leaves. You're just like, what happened? Like Vince Vince is no longer in wrestling, which is one of the biggest moments in our lifetime as wrestling fans, if not the biggest moment. Yeah. I mean, that's why this is all interesting. There's a number of answers here for this.
Well, again, because like going around, it was unbelievable. Like Brian was getting ready to be on vacation. Like Brian wasn't supposed to be around, and I'm texting him like, "Hey, I know you probably can't, but like J Hood and I are going to do a quick emergency show." And Brian's like, "Why? Like, what are you guys? Like, what are you like?" Vince just stepped away. What? Are you
My
serious?
initial reaction
Holy
was
shit.
that was the day they said Triple H was taking over booking. I'm like, why are we doing a special show? Like, we can wait a few days to talk about Triple H taking over booking. I don't understand what's happening. And then Gabe informed me.
I called Gabe. I go, Gabe, Vince McMahon is no longer with the company. What? And all of a sudden, the phone just was rattling. I don't think he was using a landline.
Wow.
It just
okay.
disrupted. It just
We don't have cell
phone was-
phones in Wisconsin. It hasn't gotten here yet.
He was all of hello, Gabe. Like, he went to the station. By the way, Austin 316 says I'll whoop your ass was in Milwaukee, was it?
It
not?
was. Yes, it was.
Wow.
Yes, it was.
Yes, it
See?
was.
Yeah, one of the biggest moments probably ever is at the old Mecca, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So-
Yeah, and that's a huge one just because it birthed one of the Mount Rushmore WWE superstars of all time. You know,
Yeah.
like it really took off Stone Cold on that trajectory. One last thing on this, because I don't think it was a coincidence going back to Road Dogg. So in the 8-man tag to start the show on AEW last night, it was not lost on me that one of the Ass Boys kind of did the Road Dogg little shake, rattle, and roll, and then it got reversed into a sharpshooter. That was not lost on me. I think that was done purposefully, taking a shot at Road Dogg, who claimed
Wow.
to be a better sports entertainer, and did not think that Brett was a great wrestler. He was a good wrestler, wasn't great.
Brian James doesn't know what he's talking about. He
Yeah,
has no
Correct.
idea what he's talking about. And I won't say anymore because I'll explode on him. And really, this will go viral because he has no idea. For him, he was the worst wrestler in DX. And you're talking about it like he was. Think about it. He was.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm trying to, I was trying to think if I could make a case for him to go over X-Pac, but I don't think I can.
All those guys could have been singles, or could have been singles champion, including Billy Gunn, who I thought was underrated. He had his run as Mr. Ass, which I thought was entertaining, but that guy could go too. Brian James, please. Are you kidding me? Are you going to say that about Brett?
He did say that Brett could work circles around him, but he felt that he was a better sports entertainer, and that's where the money is.
Okay. There's a WWE guy right there. That's actually, that's a Vince guy.
That's a Vince guy, yes.
That's a Vince guy. Because
All
the
right.
one that could do both, and Brett, by the way, had charisma as a single.
Oh,
Does that not matter in the new generation of WWE where he
the
puts the
purple and
sunglasses
black.
on kids?
Yeah, the purple and black, the sunglasses, like it's not like Brett wasn't just because he was a great wrestler, right? Like, despite what Road Dogg said, like he's a great wrestler. And like he created one of the more iconic looks in WWE history. Like it was a cool look. So
Yeah,
say
it's
that-
weird. We don't see a lot of Road Dogg tribute matches like we see the Brett ones over the last year or so.
I mean, moving your shoulders around and saying
you
that you're one
imagine?
half of the tag team champions of the world is not necessarily sports entertainment.
What does a Road Dogg tribute match look like? Now I want to see it. You brought it up. Now I want to see it. I just want to see what it would look like. What do we got in news and notes, Brian?
All right, we will start things off with WWE, a official RIP to the 24/7 title, which was officially retired on Monday after Nikki Cross threw it in the trash. You have your favorite memories, guys? 24/7 title?
So I didn't mind the 24/7 title because again, it was just you got 3 hours of Raw. Like it's a long time. Like you got a long show. So having something that was going to be comedy booked in, some of it hit, some of it didn't. I don't know if I'll necessarily miss it because I don't think I've really missed it since it's been off of television, but it wasn't the worst of Vince McMahon ideas. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah, it jumped the shark for me when Robert Roode is running around trying to get the 24/7 championship. Bobby Roode, glorious? No. EC3, all these guys, guys that can work are running around trying to get the 20. I said, okay, you want to do that referees, you want to do that with R-Truth, that's fine. But they had actual workers that could be able to get the job done, and they're running around doing that. I was like, okay, this is just done. It wasn't. Hey, everything in wrestling is not for me. It's like, and that just at a point, it was not for me. It'd have been cool on the house shows as a gimmick, but or something online, for Twitter. But it just at some point it just wasn't for me anymore. It wasn't funny.
The belt debuted May of 2019. 195 total title changes. Nikki Cross being the last one. 57 different wrestlers held the title. FTR or the Revival at the time, the only tag team to ever hold it. I don't think that counts on their shirts, the 7-star. And R-Truth led the way with 54 different reigns of the 24/7 title.
How many different, does it say, do you have any, like, how many celebrities held it?
They listed some of them, and like even there were a few who were like, oh, like Ted DiBiase bought the title at one point. So a bunch of random names like that. A former guest of the show, Peter Rosenberg, a former
Peter
champion.
Rosenberg, yeah.
So congrats to all of them. R.I.P. to the 24/7 title.
Such a bad looking championship too. Complete gimmick.
I mean, look, I understand the Packers aren't, playing well right now, but there's nothing wrong with the green and gold colors.
Oh, for heaven's sakes.
Moving on, Nick Aldis revealed on Instagram this week that he is leaving the NWA, says he's not happy with the direction of the company. He will be a free agent in January. Billy Corgan on Busted Open this week says Aldis is, quote, working an angle for himself by taking out the company on his way out.
That's not what's happening. What's happening is that Billy Corgan is not a very good promoter. This NWA cannot get off the ground. Here's how, just very briefly, here's where the NWA is going through a hard time when Tyrus is one of their top champions. Tyrus, who cannot move in the ring, cannot move. He's only a champion because he has his presence on Fox News and that he's got merchandise, and that's about it. This company should have been further along than it has been. It has been going in the wrong direction for a long time. Nick Aldis is the only thing that was holding it up. He was dressed the part. He was a professional, was speaking very highly about the NWA. And so his wife wanted to put together like an all women's tournament again. And Corrigan's like, yeah, we just don't have the talent for that. So, okay, so now Taryn Terrell and some of the others are like, oh, I'm not talented enough to be in a women's tournament. I'll leave. This is just a disaster, this company. It was on the rise under Dave Lagana, and now it's just nothing.
It just really, when Power first started and the YouTube show, it felt like there was some momentum. Like it felt like within the internet wrestling community that people were kind of getting behind the show. Not that it was, suddenly going to show up on television and draw numbers that AEW is, but it felt like, there was an old school nostalgic feel to it. Aldis being the champ and dressing the way he dressed. There was a cool old school feel to it. And I certainly felt that there was a spot for it. But yeah, about the only time I hear about NWA now, because I don't seek out its contents. I did initially when Power, I checked out a couple of those Power shows. But yeah, the only time I hear about it now is when bad things are happening, like Nick Aldis leaving, which I'm curious to see where Aldis ends up, because he's going to be a real asset if he goes to WWE or AEW.
Well, I'll throw that out. Free agent in January. Does Aldis in the Rumble make an impact? Does San Antonio know who he is?
Some will. Some would say the NWA has been an obscurity. And he's been a long time since he was on WWE. Yeah, he was part of AEW before AEW, correct?
Yeah, he
lost the title to Cody at All In.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's still, at the time, that was still a little bit niche. A little bit.
Yeah.
So I think that it'll pop some, but not much. But I would like to see him and his wife, Mickey, in the WWE. In AEW, I'm not saying that it would be bad. I'm just saying that in WWE, he had an opportunity to kind of name his schedule, get back in the, and he looks great. He's still in great shape. So I like to see them as a package, actually.
Yep, I agree. And finally, news and notes, Braun Strowman going viral on social media after his match with Omos at Crown Jewel, tweeting, quote, "Holy hell, Omos, can you believe we got 47 stars?" And reminded the people that no one cares at all about these floppy floppers, giants and monsters greater than Flippy Flipper who bags your groceries at Kroger. He has since apologized, saying he was joking and he has mad respect for everyone in his locker room, and the internet wrestling community, quote, can't take a joke.
Oh, so that it wasn't a joke, man. Like, you're on record saying all this stuff before. Like, now you've been reemployed. You've been giving a second opportunity. And I keep going back to what Bryan Danielson talks about in terms of the reason why he was able to work, why Rey Mysterio works. Because if you just have all, as Braun Strowman, flippity floppers, it probably doesn't work.
Right.
But if you have nothing but monsters, that doesn't work either. You need a good mix of both to try to draw in a broad range of people to your wrestling program, your entertainment program. Like him being so offended that his matches don't rate well. Like also, you're also not that great of a worker. Like my favorite highlight of Braun Strowman, and I show this to everyone. I have shown this to anyone who comes to my house and I make them watch wrestling. Like if I'm watching a wrestling show, like, yeah, you can sit there. I have to watch this. I show them when he accidentally caught Brock Lesnar with a knee and Brock Lesnar got pissed off and hit him in the face for real. It's one of my favorite things ever. Like, you're not that good in the ring, Braun. Sorry, pal.
Right.
That's why you're not getting high-rated matches.
And if it doesn't matter, then why is he mentioning it, right?
Right.
I mean, does he realize that 90% of that roster of flippy floppy guys, 90% of the roster, men and women.
Well, that's why you see things. So, like, other wrestlers were going on social media where, like, Jericho retweeted, goes, "Oh, I used to work at Kroger." And then Ricochet responded, like, "Oh, I worked there also." It's like, you're in the same locker room with a guy like Ricochet, and you're saying that he's trash, basically. And it also loses some steam when you're the guy that created an entire company that didn't have flippy floppers, and then you came crawling back the minute Triple H called. Like, you sort of lose some steam if you're not out there doing your thing, controlling your narrative, and showing the world they don't need those floppers. Like, you lose some steam there.
Oh, bro, it's with the promo. That's pretty stiff right there, brother. Holy cow. Okay. Calm down, for God's sakes. What a strong promo. But it's the truth.
Flopped off the top rope.
Yeah, like, hey, I don't want to cross you, pal. I agree with you. Like, there was just no reason for that. And so for almost just one quick thing about him, I know he went back to Nigeria recently, and so that gives him a whole different personality. Like, oh, he's back home with his family and seen him in a long time. I could clearly see an opportunity for the Hurt Business with Omos coming together. I think at some point that would not surprise me. Where, God, does Lashley need a heater of all things? Could you imagine Lashley needing Omos to help him out, kind of like Shawn Michaels Nash? I could actually see that in WWE. It wouldn't surprise me.
Hey, I'm all here. If they decide to get hurt, they broke up Hurt Business prematurely, and they have teased too many times getting them back together. So I swear to God, Hunter, tease me again, I'm gonna be upset.
And we got a Shelton promo and match on Monday, so there's sort of something there.
Yeah. We did get a Shelton. He still looks the same. It's amazing. It's amazing.
He's been doing it for 20 years. He still looks the same.
Amazing.
Awesome. Good for him. What do you guys have as your match of the week?
For me, I'm going to go back to Friday. I think Orange Cassidy and Shibata for the All-Atlantic title. I don't know Shibata. I read it in a little bit, and the fact that the man almost died and now he's out here wrestling. Like, that was a damn good match. And Mike Tyson being amazed by the two of them on commentary, like, that just added to the entertainment side of that. And I think going to Saturday.
Tyson, by the way, calling spots. Do the moves. Like, whoa.
Doing his thing. And the other one is Saturday. Like, Roman and Logan Paul, like, was fun. It was entertaining. We talk a lot about Logan Paul has proven he can be a wrestler. He's a damn good wrestler. I don't think we're giving Roman enough credit either, because every time he's in these spots, he delivers also. And as good as his character is, he's that good in the ring right now also. Like, that was a fun way to end Saturday.
Yeah, I'm sure Braun Strowman didn't like it because Logan Paul is one of those flippity floppers that he so much dislikes.
And he took a video while jumping off the top rope. I don't know where that stands.
Dude, I don't know where I have to set the bar for Logan Paul for him not to, like, I feel like I'm getting more and more confident because the matches he puts on are great. And he seems to constantly, I know it's been 3 matches, but he's clearing the bar every time he's out there. I kind of anticipated maybe this being a shorter match, where he gets in a couple of spots, the one lucky punch, Roman kicks out and then finishes him off. But man, that was so much fun on Saturday. It really was. Again, and the creativity of taking the video, because he's the social media guy, of doing the frog splash onto Roman on the announce table. And they put him in spots to make him do some great moves that are overly complicated. Like, I think about the blockbuster that he gives, from the middle rope, top rope, when he hits Roman with that. And it all looks so good and so smooth because he is a really good athlete. Like, that is the match that just over the last week, is constantly sticking out in my head. And it did its job, by the way. I had friends of mine who know that I'm a wrestling fan going, hey, like, it's not supposed to be this easy for him, right?
Yeah. Too much outside interference.
Like in the bloodline, you're supposed to do
That's
that.
fair. That's fair.
It's Logan Paul. Come on, Roman. I mean, you'll struggle against him. I mean, it's come on. I like the match until we got all that outside interference. I like the moves. Ultimately from both of those guys. That's why I like the drama in the ring. Like the story is Roman does not take Logan Paul seriously. Logan Paul is working his ass off. Everything was excellent. All the moves, this move set was excellent. Then you get all this interference. Then here comes Logan's brother. And so now the only thing I can think of is, God, are the Pauls going to beat the Usos at WrestleMania? Or is it going to be Sami and Kevin Owens beating it? Like, I'm seriously, now I'm thinking the other Paul brother is like interested now. So now we might get both Pauls in the WWE. Is that the matchup for them? That's what was going through my mind as I saw the end of that match. I'm like, I don't want to see both Pauls in there, and they can't beat the Usos. Let's have a real tag team in there, or have Sami and Kevin Owens do it. That was going through my mind. That's what I was thinking about.
By the way, I'm not putting it past the New Day winning on Friday and winning tomorrow night. I really loved that promo to start. The opening segment of Raw, that promo between New Day and the Usos, fantastic.
So how about realism, right? What all four of them said, all of it was real. Every bit of it. Vince McMahon teaching the New Day how to dance. That's a real deal, by the way. I need you to clap and just dance. And they're like, here, let me show you how to do it. And they're like, you going to teach us how to dance, Vince? For real?
And I think those four also showing you can drop them anywhere, anytime. They're going to deliver.
Oh,
promo, they're going to deliver tomorrow night. Wrestling, like that's just what those four do.
Oh, if we're not here 1 week from now and that's not my match, like something went horribly wrong. If that's not my match of the week, I'm expecting it to it's going to be a banger. It's going to deliver.
Speaking of that match, Sean Ross sat through this out, and I love the idea. Is somehow an Uso gets hurt tomorrow, and Sami has to fill in, and he gets the win to extend the streak.
Of course, you would love that. Of course,
I'm a fan of it.
Wait, so now Sammy's a part of it, and they just freebird it, and Sami can rotate in.
Oh,
I love that idea. I love that. Mysterio, Gunther, and SmackDown. Little against Big. I just like the story. Danielson against Guevara, 2 out of 3 falls. You know, they never do disqualification finishes unless it's a 2 out of 3 falls match. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
I thought that Bianca Belair and Bayley stole Crown Jewel for me. I thought their match was excellent. Go back and watch. I mean, here's why. We've never seen Bianca. I felt like I said this a couple weeks ago. We've never seen Bianca pushed like this. Like she's had it easy, I think, as champion. But Bayley's laying it in, man. She's to the point where I thought, are we getting a title change? And by the way, we talked about this with we talked about this with the tag team matchup in Chicago for an AEW, right? Scissor Me Daddy, those against
against Swerve in Our Glory, which we're getting again at which.
Yes. That matchup, Swerve in Our Glory, in that matchup against those two, against and we thought it should have been a title change there, right? Same thing here. Bayley was so good and so convincing. I thought she was going to win the championship against Bianca Belair. So I like that match a lot.
They've delivered every time. Like they delivered in their ladder match. They delivered now, and like we shouldn't be shocked. Like when you go through in the last decade. Bayley's probably in 5 of the best women's matches, 5 of the top 10 women's matches. Like she's underrated as a wrestler. She delivers in the ring, and of the 4 horsewomen, I mean, her and Sasha Banks are probably the 2 best like in-ring performers. And
I think also bonus points for that ending. Like that was a creative ending to that match.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, what are they doing here? And they're like, oh no, she's like trapped in there. Like I really enjoyed that ending.
Yeah, I like the match. That was the best match at Crown Jewel.
So that'll do it this week for GKW. There's, again, plenty still going on in the world of professional wrestling as the Usos try to break the New Day's Tag Team Championship consecutive day record. They'll be wrestling tomorrow night. I'm sure we'll talk about that. I'm sure we'll talk about so many other things as this month we have War Games as part of Survivor Series. We have Full Gear for AEW. So many things to get into. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next week on GKW.